Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I hope everyone had a happy new year. Our presentation today is going to be Become a Knowledge Worker and Keep Your Skills Fresh. Before we get started, I want to direct you to the chat section on the lower right-hand side of your screen. If you have a question about the content, you can submit a chat to everybody. Or if you have a technical question or any technical issues, you can send a question directly to the host, and we'll be sure to help you resolve that. Now I'm going to turn it over to one of our learning consultants, Tara Denton.
Thank you so much, Lee, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining the webinar today. The next 30 minutes are going to be about helping you develop a plan to meet challenges, differentiate yourself, and come out of the ring a champion every time in 2011. So why do you need a plan? In today's ever-changing environment, people are required to adapt new knowledge and skills to remain competitive in the workplace. And keeping pace with new challenges can prove daunting, especially when one is thrust into unfamiliar territory. How will you keep up with the pace of the ever-changing now? How can you differentiate yourself as a small business, a company, a professional? What are you doing to stay relevant, to keep your skills fresh? And how can you get the most out of your job so that you are the one selected for a promotion or special project? One way to acquire new knowledge and keep your skills fresh is to become a knowledge worker. CLICK is a model developed by Omobitse Barrow. We're going to introduce the model today and help you become a knowledge worker. But before we dive into talking about knowledge workers and the CLICK model, let's reflect on the past year, actually the past 6 months. At the bottom of the participant panel, which is on the right-hand side of your screen, there's a hand icon. I'd like to get a sense of how many people have had to learn how to do something new in the past 6 months. Click the hand if you've learned something new in the past 6 months. Wow. So it looks like that's a pretty resounding answer. Since most of you raised your hand, I think actually everybody did, let's concentrate on that something you've had to learn and adapt to in the past 6 months, whether it be in work or in life. Take a moment and think of that time when you've had to ramp up your knowledge quickly in order to be successful. What event, need, or purpose required you to learn that something new or to perform in a different way than you normally would? Once you've thought of an example, take the text annotation tool that's on the top of your screen and type that example on this slide for me. Now, the thing about the text icon is you've got to actually click the mouse again after you type in your answer so we can see it. So we've got a new job. Wow, that's a huge ramp up. My example that I typed on there with an extra O is home ownership. This year I had to become quickly savvy about terms like mortgages, lending, taxes and homeowners fees, contracts, covenants, many things I was not accustomed to. The entire purchasing process took about 1 to 2 months, and I felt like I was in a whirlwind of new information. In order to make the best decision for my family, I had to take the initiative to become a knowledgeable consumer. In my work environment, there we see technical skills, new role in company. My business example is very close to that. In the work environment, a slower economy required a change in business focus. There were many times when we had to devise and implement new approaches, take risks, research, and learn quickly in order to make the best decision for the time. In transition, that's another great example. This exercise was mainly to bring to light the concept that we are constantly required to grow and learn new things in order to be successful. And many of these examples typed on the screen, our environment is introducing a new challenge and is asking us to meet that challenge. So in this mode, we're normally reacting to the set of circumstances we're put in. The CLICK model will work for these reactive changes as well as for the proactive individual improvement opportunities we initiate in our work and our lives. Is it important to have a method or a plan to deal with these different opportunities? What about taking it as it comes? Well, let's take a little time to think about how we normally react to or respond to changes. If we harness an understanding of how we react to change, It can inform our plan to build the strength and the motivation to personally develop and excel. This continuum represents some normal reactions to change. In December's Impact article, I gave the example of an employee asked to give an online presentation to a client. This is her challenge and her opportunity. How do you normally react to similar requests? So I'd like for you to once again use the annotation tools. Use the X or the check annotation tool on the top of your screen. If you see the square or box right up above the slides, you can click on the drop-down list and select the X or the check. Go ahead and click to make a mark about where you feel or how you typically respond when a change or a new opportunity is given to you. Apathetic, that's an interesting one too, because that means you are just willing to take it as it comes. So many people feel optimistic and excited. That's what I want to hear. I like the people on our webinar today. But honestly, let's be true to ourselves. Many people feel more on the side of anxiety and worry than hope or excitement. The idea of a challenge can be uncomfortable, but growth doesn't happen through passivity. In the article, I included a provocative quote from Isaac Asimov. The day you stop learning is the day you begin decaying, and then you are no longer a human being. It's a strong quote, but I love the message. The day you stop learning, you become a human in the past, a human that's being. The truth is that the only way we move ahead is by being in a constant state of becoming, of learning, of evolving. The term knowledge worker, which is in the title of this presentation and kicked off my article, my December article, was coined by Peter Drucker around 1959 as one who works primarily with information or one who develops and uses knowledge in the workplace. In this presentation, I want to focus on that phrase, dedicated to developing and using knowledge in the workplace. It is the worker that knows the level of knowledge and skill that allowed them to get to their current level of performance will likely not get them to the next or higher level of their profession. Hence, the need to say yes to a new challenge and get the job done. That's why we're introducing the CLICK model today. I read about CLICK in an article, as I mentioned earlier, by Omabitse Barrow. It resonated with me because CLICK provides a straightforward process to define and plan development. If we can define the different phases of a challenge, then we can navigate through the waters with greater ease. The CLICK model is a simple blueprint to guide the transformation into a knowledge worker and an extraordinary professional. I encourage you to take a piece of paper at your desk right now and draw this graph as we talk about each block of the CLICK model. The first step of the model, which is highlighted, is challenge. The decision to be made here is, will you or won't you take on the opportunity? To make this decision and commit, play the role of detective during this challenge phase. Ask yourself the following 4 questions. Question number 1, what is the objective? Question number 2, what will success look like? Question number 3, what skills, knowledge, and resources will I need to meet this objective? How can I reach that successful vision? And the last question, is there a gap between what I know now and what I need to know to be successful in this challenge? Now, I've developed a tool to help you investigate the challenge. You can make a simple table like the one above to help you answer those 4 challenge questions that will point you in the right direction to achieve your mission. If any of the audience on today's webinar is familiar with learning impact maps, this table will look somewhat familiar. Learning impact maps are ways to define or to determine how to get the most out of your training. The idea is to target learning priorities for the learner prior to training so they're more apt to use the knowledge and skills they gained in training in their actual jobs when they get back on the job. The spin we're taking for the CLICK model is that the individual is determining the knowledge or skills needed to meet the task and how to find that information in order to be successful. Let's return for an example, to the web meeting scenario so we can build a sample table. So in the web meeting scenario, the objective for our knowledge worker was to host a web meeting. Well, what does success look like? Success looks like a technically smooth delivery. When she was determining how to reach that successful vision, she thought, well, I'm going to practice by uploading files so I know how that functionality works, and annotation tools so that I can make sure that we have an interactive web meeting and that I'm getting the feedback I need from my attendees. I want to have 2 computers so I can see what my participants are seeing as well as myself, and an extra headset just in case of those technical difficulties. The gap that our knowledge worker determined is that she is definitely going to need to practice and have online tutorials with her web meeting tool. She also decided that she would interview Scott, one of her colleagues, about his online meetings. She's attended some of his online meetings before, and this knowledge worker knows that if she interviews Scott, he'll be willing to give her some tips and best practices. I'd like the attendees today to quickly draw an empty table, just sketch out this table with these columns on a sheet of paper. You can use the bottom of your Click Model page if you like, because we're going to return to this later in the presentation. We're going to have a thought reflection exercise for all of you. The next step in Click is to learn. Once you've completed your table and you know what you need to learn, it's time to source where you can get the information or skills that you need. Is it going to come from an article, from an online tutorial in our earlier example, a coached practice session? Will you interview someone or watch someone demonstrate what you need to be able to do? In order to understand a little more about the learning phase of this process, let's take a look at some facts about learning through different methods. The learning phase is a delicate part of the process because it's easy to get discouraged. And I'm going to ask my colleague on this webinar, Lee, to tell us a story about some of her challenges as she was going through the learning phase, an important process for her.
Hi, everyone. Earlier this year, I was challenged with becoming certified in ProSci's change management methodology in order to help our clients with these tools. At first, I felt a little bit shaky and not quite comfortable talking about the material. And the truth was, I just didn't really have that experience under my belt. When I shared these feelings with my mom, she reminded me that anytime you learn something new, it's always uncomfortable, and soon you'll be an expert. And I just thought it was funny that I am the learning professional, yet my mother is the one giving me this advice and reminding me about the learning process. So to help me become more knowledgeable, I set up a recurring lunch with one of our change consultants to just share ideas and best practices. I attended some free webinars to learn about other change management processes, and I began reading different blogs on other people's experiences with change. So soon, I was not only able to comfortably discuss change management with our clients, but I was also able to make recommendations for solutions. So at this point, I now consider myself a true change professional.
I love that story because we all know that moms are professionals in every aspect of life, but also because Lee's mother was absolutely right. Try not to get frustrated while you're in the learning phase. The rest of the process hinges on this step. One other thing that I thought was interesting that as we go through this model, you'll recognize in Lee's story is that she used many different methods of learning, many different methods of being taught something in order to become an expert, in order to apply that knowledge. The percentages you see in the pyramid above show the relationship between different teaching and learning methods and retention. In the pyramid, after listening to a lecture, we're at the top of the pyramid now, you'll at best remember 5% of what you heard. If you read a book, you'll remember 10%. And group discussion and practice yield the highest percentages. And that's when Lee and her story got to become more successful. So as you're trying to gain new knowledge and skills, think of this pyramid and realize that after you read an article about your new challenge or blog postings, or you're sharing ideas that you may not be able to remember everything until you really start practicing and applying the new knowledge in context. Be patient and gentle with yourself as you ramp up your skills and develop a realistic plan to move you from acquaintance with a concept into adept execution of a concept. Speaking of a plan, the next step in the process is to move from the learning phase into the execution and the planning stage. In the innovation stage, you create what you need in order to be successful in the task. For example, you can create a job aid to help you remember the steps you need to take to complete a certain task. Do you need to have dry run practice rounds with a colleague to ensure you're comfortable delivering on the objective? You've learned these new concepts, and now you are ready to work with them. And as in Lee's story, you are ready to change the vision and to help build a vision with new clients. The next step in our 5-step model is change. This is where you're changing your behavior. The Lifecycle Institute defines learning as changing your behavior to produce a result. At this point in the process, you have done all of the research you need, have created supporting materials and a plan in the innovation stage to help you successfully achieve your objective, so you're reaching that what does success look like vision, and you've acted on that plan. You have taken abstract knowledge and preparation and made it into concrete execution. You successfully changed. Congratulations. This is what all that work was for. You're actually doing something different as a result of your learning. How exciting. The final step in the process is know. The know phase means you have confidence in your knowledge. You have expanded your knowledge base to include more information, and now you have a larger base from which to pull and have increased your level of skill in a certain area. If you notice, the cycle is continuous. Have you ever heard or have you ever learned something new and only used it once? Or better yet, have you increased your skill level only to have the fallacy of success, which is the knowledge that you've done well in an area or in a project, and you're done, you're finished, you've been successful, and you're going to continuously be successful for the forever future. In his book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, Marshall Goldsmith mentions the fallacy of success. It is a fallacy to think that we can rest on our laurels or bask in a successful delivery indefinitely. For a simple metaphor, let's think about a marathon runner. In order to be able to complete a marathon, the runner must keep his body in condition. The runner has to frequently run and build up endurance to finish the race. After the first marathon, if the runner decides to stop training or to train infrequently at lesser levels, will the runner be poised to compete in the next marathon? I'd like to now invite you, after we've been discussing the knowledge worker and we've been discussing the click model, and now we're in the change aspect, what are the benefits of being a knowledge worker? What are some benefits to being an individual, an employee who is willing to train like that marathon runner, who is willing to continuously condition themselves in the workplace? You should be able to take the T icon and type on the screen and then click the mouse out, and I'll be able to see what you write. Professional growth, relevancy, that's a big one. Satisfaction. I think you know that when you're successful and when you are continuously reaching that successful vision, finding consulting jobs, why not? That constantly requires some ramp up. But I think when you're constantly producing quality, then of course you have a sense of satisfaction. Promotion, that's one that's easily found if you're continuously gaining new skills that your company finds of value. Continuous improvements, becoming a change agent, an agent of change that not only is changing the way that they behave, the knowledge that they learn, but they're inspiring others to also become knowledge workers. What an asset you become to your company when you activate others in knowledge workmanship. Makes the job easier. You know, if you're continuously learning, if you get used to being able to rise to new opportunities and new challenges, I do believe it does become easier. Okay, thank you guys so much for such great responses. We'll get back to the model now. But as most of you had very positive responses to that and very specific, you can know that keeping your skills fresh is a constant endeavor. The click model can motivate you to stay relevant and to greet these challenges as opportunities to develop professionally and personally. Now, I'd like to take a few minutes to return back to that blank table you created to help you define the challenge so you can determine what you need to learn and start your development plan. This is a new year. This is 2011. I'm so happy to be the first Lifecycle Institute webinar for this year. So I can challenge you all to think about your New Year's resolution. It could be a personal or a professional New Year's resolution. Take a moment and write down your objective and use this table, use this tool to begin your first click in 2011. I encourage you to use this next minute right now to have a moment of reflection, to think about how you can use Click to make your life, to enrich your life more. I would like to provide you all with some sources, some direct sources that I used for this webinar. The first, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chat these links into all of you. The first is Owen Barrow's Click model. So the link that I've given to you is the archive for the article that he wrote, and you can actually listen to a podcast of the article. And then we did look up Peter Drucker's Knowledge Worker. And I also would like for all of you to, in this new year, think of Lifecycle Institute as your professional development partner, your Click partner. The following are our upcoming professional development events, but there are also more listed on our website. And we can also customize any learning event to meet your needs. And with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Lee for our upcoming webinar slide, and then if we have any leftover time, we'll take a few questions.
Thanks so much, Tara. Next month in February, our presentation will be Pruning Your Inventory, Setting MRO Stocking Levels. That will be presented by Doug Wallace. And before we sign off, let's just give it 1 minute to see if we have any questions in the queue. Okay, it looks like there are no questions today. So thank you again, everybody, and good luck keeping your New Year's resolutions. Have a great day. Bye.